now we have Laura joining in, if I'm not mistaken, from Kenya or some other part of the world. She is a global citizen. I leave it to her where she is joining from. But Laura and me go many years back, and Laura and me connected when I used to work at Ashoka University. And I was working with, I used to lead the International Scholars Program at Ashoka, where we used to go out and recruit some really, really bright students and get them on full scholarships to Ashoka University. And I, at that point of time, came in contact with Laura through International ACAC, and then her work at Hardy Access Network, and then with I think Yale Young African Scholars Program, and a lot of great things that she was doing at that point of time. And it's almost 10 years now from my time at Ashoka to now today at Masters Union, and she has continued on that journey. I have found it very difficult to find scholarships for my kids that I was able to give them in Ashoka, and I know how hard a job it is to find, good scholarships. Even now, it is becoming more and more difficult with each passing year. I recently had an interaction with Laura and the team, and I had spoken my heart out about what are the issues. And I was even in Ghana in October for the forum that was being hosted for International ACAC in Accra. And there as well as for a panel, I was speaking about this equity in international education and the challenges that are there. And that's why when I was planning the programming, I said it is very, very important that we have somebody like Laura coming in and sharing her perspective and putting spotlight on this aspect of education and this responsibility of us as educators, as university promoters, as university chancellors, vice chancellors, so that they are aware that this is a very, very important subject to be discussed and not left on the back burner. So I'm so grateful to Laura for her time, for all her work and commitment. I mean, I can go on, but I know we are running short on time, and we had only had 30 minutes, of which we have 24 minutes. So I want to dive straight into the topic, from access to agency, fixing the gaps in global education equity. And when I went through your profile, Laura, I mean, for this conversation, I saw you started with Barnard College, went up to African Leadership Academy, to Yale Young African Scholars Program. So you have been at the both sides. You started at Barnard College doing university admissions, and then went on to do work. A lot of it has been with high schools, and at the African Leadership Academy, I know, which is a fantastic institution. I think you were part of the founding team, so to say, at African Leadership Academy, giving access to so many bright students from across Africa to that kind of top quality education. So tell us a little bit about, what is the biggest misconception global education systems have about talent in undeserved communities? And I also had this question: what brought you to Africa in the first place? You were in New York, in Columbia University, in Barnard College, and then you end up in Africa. So please, over to you, Laura.
Sure. Thanks, Ankur. Thanks for having me here. It's always nice to catch up with you and talk about these things. And I appreciate that you've been someone who's wanted to talk about these things from the early days, even when others weren't talking about such things. Maybe the second thing first, in terms of, I loved working at Barnard, the wonderful liberal arts college in the United States that focuses on educating women for the 21st century. But while working there as the international admissions officer and traveling around the world to many, many parts of the world, including India, other parts of Southeast Asia and Asia, Latin America, Europe, I felt like we were only visiting fancy schools, talking to fancy students and bringing them important information. But what about the students who don't get to attend fancy high schools? The ones that aren't at the top or at private institutions. What about students who are really high performing and want to explore international university opportunities at government schools and supported by NGOs? And so I loved helping young women get into Barnard, but I felt like I was in the admissions side. I was more of a gatekeeper than a gate opener in a lot of ways. And so when African Leadership Academy was opening, or was getting ready to begin their university guidance programming for their first cohort of students. It was 2009. I was, connected to the opportunity by colleagues, by a colleague at another women's college who knew the founders, and I thought this is an opportunity to be on the side of the desk where I'm helping lots of students get the information they need to access higher education with financial aid, so that it's actually accessible. So that's how I ended up in South Africa at African Leadership Academy. And sorry, your question was the biggest misconception about
talent? Yeah, about talent from from the developing countries.
I think none of us know what we know until we know it, right? I don't want to. I'm not here to shame anybody for not knowing things that they haven't been exposed to yet, but. I think one of the misconceptions about reaching out to underserved students is that it's reaching down somehow, that it's reaching to students who are less talented or less well prepared or less ready. There's an assumption that there are very clear gaps in their communities and their experiences, but there's an assumption that those gaps are insurmountable or mean that they can't go off into a rigorous university environment and succeed. And sure, some students cannot because they've had huge gaps, right? They haven't had sufficient numeracy or literacy or English development if it's an Anglophone university, sure. But many have, and there's this assumption to see them all poor kids are the same, and they all just couldn't possibly, is sometimes the mentality, and that's just not true, So I really wish more universities, some are great at doing this, but I wish more universities around the world would see the diversity and the complexity of the environment that such students are in around the world. And just dig a little deeper and look for the students or the organizations like mine working with the students who can do this work, because even if it's not giant numbers to start out or things like that, every single opportunity granted, every single opportunity afforded to perfectly qualified students, nobody's asking for charity, every bit makes a huge difference. One of my students, when I was at ALA, African Leadership Academy, she's from Morocco. She told me that in Morocco, they say one drop of perfume can make a large bucket of water smell good. And I think there's a real parallel there to educating, even starting out in small numbers, a few members of underserved communities, because they can have such an impact in their community. And so I wish universities would think about it from that angle a little more.
And what a beautiful analogy. I mean, one drop of perfume can, full bucket of water can smell nicely. And this is so nice. And Laura, thank you for articulating this so nicely. The misconception around talent, and it's not just charity. And I think I have felt that in my own work as well, a little bit of work that I have done with people coming from marginalized backgrounds, and they just sometimes remain as one kid on the brochure that has to be sold as a university marketing effort, and then the rest of it is forgotten. So that kid becomes a charity kid, and I really, as you said, I am against that whole conception of what is this whole debate around what constitutes as talent, what is merit, what are the context of how that kid came around, from which communities. And you are currently working with, I remember, I believe you had put it out on LinkedIn or somewhere that this year as well, you had so many kids coming from you run the Duolingo Scholars Program, UNHCR, and many of them have been placed. So there are bright side to it. There is good work happening, and you have been able to place these 40 kids, if I am not mistaken, to world-class education. So if we can just touch upon maybe a couple of examples of how universities have opened the door for these kids so that we can learn from those examples.
Sure. Our program with Duolingo is in support of United Nations High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR, and we work with a small but very, very highly qualified cohort of refugee students each year, some of whom live in India. Others live in various African countries or in northern Iraq. And yeah, so we're very lucky. To date, we have 100 scholars in universities around the world in some of the very top names and the best programs that you can think of. I think it goes to show that, and by the way, they're doing very well. It goes to show like this is doable. The students are there. They just need access to the opportunities. It's not that they need necessarily special treatment or lower barrier,
Lower barriers, yeah.
lower requirements
Benchmarks.
even.
Benchmarks,
Yeah. They just need access to information and the opportunity and some flexibility to demonstrate their potential, maybe in slightly different ways. And so I think that universities that are doing this really well understand things like you don't have to set the tippy top highest English proficiency scores. Of course, you need minimum proficiency, but highly selective institutions tend to set SAT or ACT and DET or TOEFL or IELTS. They tend to set these very high bars to look selective, as much as to really peg the requirement at the minimum required for a student to be successful. And that's a huge disservice to students all over the world, not necessarily just refugees. So I think, I think not being precious and overly like lofty about the minimum required scores in certain contexts is one. I think recognizing that a Rohingya refugee who has taken Indian state boards and gotten Bs, given the absolutely desperate situation that they live in India, is probably a genius who would have A star if they were at a fancy school, like at a Delhi public school or something, And so also recognizing that the context matters and that accepting that student with Bs is not lowering your standards. It's recognizing that student has overcome enormous things to get that B. And if they just get to your campus and don't have hunger and financial desperation and police threats and everything else, they'll probably be your valedictorian. So it's recognizing and being flexible, not to lower standards, but to identify what is an indicator of talent and capacity in that different context compared to fancy schools or regular, middle-class kids.
Absolutely. And I remember my time at Ashoka, we used to do this. We used to, it requires time. It requires, I know what it takes. It requires a lot of time, resources to be devoted to that particular case. And one of the challenges that we used to face was, since I was traveling and I used to, as you said, at Barnard College, when you used to travel, you wanted to travel to international schools, and it felt like you were just there to give access to students who already had a lot of, let's say, put it this way, they were already on the cusp of maybe going to Barnard or some other Ivy League or some other top institution, and then one was one of them. But I also felt that when I went to Africa for the first time, and when I traveled to South Asia, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, all these places, where I used to go to those schools that were not on the traditional university admissions officer circuits. And when I went to those schools, and I think I don't know what motivated me. I had never got a background in this, but I just went there and I said, okay, I will go to an international school of Kenya. I'll go to all the top schools in Kenya, but I also want to spend a day going to the government schools and trying to find out if there is, and we actually could get those kids here in Ashoka. And when we saw them, and yes, they were given their context, they were coming from marginalized communities, they were not having access to those kind of resources that probably other kids are. Not to bring those kids down, they are doing phenomenally well. Kids are kids everywhere, but yes, they had a different background, and we understood it. And I was blessed enough to have leadership in Ashoka that understood that, and they said, okay, let's spend some more time on these cases. Even though they are not all A's, they are B's, or they're even a C in a couple of subjects. But this kid is coming from a background which is even what you said is absolutely what I was used to hear. This kid getting a B is valedictorian here in Ashoka. If we just get him to the doors and then open those, take care of those financial requirements, and those are not That's big, by the way. Minimum financial requirement. I mean, just about that. We incorporated a stipend of 10,000 rupees a month when we had our first set of scholars coming in. We had not thought about it, but when they came in, we realized that they need to be also having some pocket money to spend around in that environment. So those challenges of adjusting in an environment where maybe 95% of the kids are coming from those kind of backgrounds that are generally taking admissions in elite universities, and then you have those 5% that are not attuned to that atmosphere. So getting in the door is one thing, but then also ensuring that skills thrive in that university ecosystem is another project that a university has to take ownership of, right? If you want to talk about that as well.
Definitely. I think many universities would find that they do already have services to support the needs of their current students, which maybe just need to be tweaked or adjusted a little bit to serve other students as well, I think in the context of certainly international universities, I'm not as informed about Indian.
From an international perspective, university. Let's say Barnard College and all these places that you worked with ALA students have gone around the world. So some examples from there.
And those universities, and I know Ashoka does too, but they have a writing center to help students who need to get better for writing. That wasn't put there for some special refugee kid. That's there for everyone, right? There's the tutoring center, there's the mental health support, all of those things are there. And so maybe they could tweak or adjust, add a little specialized programming in one staff member or something, but they don't need to reinvent any wheels to incorporate these students and support them. I think it's often a relatively small adjustment. And there's a mentality as well, because I think most of these universities, they are interested in diversity geographically, racially, socioeconomically. They're interested in that and have made strides in other communities of students that they somehow aren't yet quite fully making for low-income international students or refugees, for example. If a let's say a low-income African-American kid from a inner city school where they know that school doesn't have a great math curriculum, they don't teach calculus, they don't deny that student, they make sure that student takes some math gap filling, right? Or if it's the writing set, all the first generation students take some special programming to help them bring up their writing skills and learn the soft skills that they maybe are not exposed to in their communities. Sure. Why not do that for low-income international students? Why not do that for refugees? Too often a university tends to say the student couldn't possibly catch up. Why not? If a student has gone through the millions of daily struggles to get top scores in a national curriculum in a country of refuge or in a deeply impoverished community, you really don't think they have the work ethic to pick up calculus? Do you really don't think they're that's folly to me, I think, and also possibly colonial arrogance as well. And so I think, again, some universities are doing this really well. I think many more could take some time to look at what they offer and see sure, this can serve these students too. Why not?
Absolutely. So Laura, my question to you also is, where do you believe the next decade of education equity work should focus on? I mean, it should be access, affordability, belonging, employability, agency. You are now one of the leading voices. What is your take on this?
I think all of those things, access, affordability, belonging, employability, agency, they're all critical. And in a perfect world, I would say just, yes, please, all of those. Thanks. I think one of the absolutely biggest gaps that can inform a lot of these things is access to the information. At the end of the day, I don't mean to sound like overly like self-deprecating or something. At the end of the day, I just give information to these exceptional students and make sure someone gets to look at them. That's all I do. They have done the hard work and they will continue to do the hard work in university. So I think creating access to the information needed for students who are underserved will lead to a lot of these other things. It will lead to access. And certainly affordability is a big issue. And I think affordability comes down to prioritizing. Ashoka is an example, probably the first one in India that I know of, that prioritized. And I don't believe in like, oh, we wish we could, but we can't. Like, if you wish you could, then budget it. If that is your priority, budget for your priority. Maybe don't build another new pool. Maybe the gym doesn't need to be renovated yet, you know? If you wish you could, then prioritize it. And there comes affordability. With information and affordability, you get access. And through that, you get belonging. Through that, you get employability. And through that, you get agency because students can then pursue what they want. And so those two things at the beginning would fix all the other things farther down the pipeline, if you ask me. I know it sounds sort of Pollyanna, but it's simply true. If you want to do it, you can do it. Go ahead.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I think you have put it nicely. There is a lot of capital that has been diverted to things that can probably wait. That can probably should not be the priority in a system where you have so many people who are looking for access, and having that access and is the key to ensuring that all next other things follow. I'm also conscious of the time. We have 5 minutes left. Audience, if you have any questions, you are here live. You can put it in the chat box or any remarks. We are happy to take them. But Laura will be here with us for next 5 minutes only. And then we have Dr. Jitin Chadha from who is running a very, very fantastic institution in Delhi. He will be here with us. We are talking about the new age universities. But before we close, Laura, I also have that final question. You have spent your career building systems that help students navigate opportunity, not just dream about it. If you could redesign global university admissions from scratch, make it more equitable, what will be your changes that you should be bringing in?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. At the end of the day, aside from geopolitical nonsense that's going on and giving me stomach aches, the thing I lie awake thinking about is, frankly, these systems have been designed to keep students out, in these kinds of students, and they've been designed to let certain students in. And I lie awake at night wondering, why am I working so hard and having students work so hard to shoehorn themselves into a system that is actually designed to keep them out? Why? You know, we should just be doing something fully different instead. I hope they get in and burn it down from the inside. That's how I fall asleep eventually. It's like, I hope that the students can fix it from the inside. But I really think if I were starting from scratch, I would start from the student with the least access and the least resources and work out what would make it viable for them if they have the talent. And then build from serving that human being rather than what we have now, which at least in North America was very much built for sort of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants of means. So
absolutely. I think what you're absolutely correct, and I'm sitting in India. Being in India, I remember Mahatma Gandhi when he was asked. One of the politicians or industrialists asked him at the time of independence, how should we think about decision making, policy making in the new country? He said, you should think about the lowest person in the chain, the most poorest person in the chain, and think about that person, and then design policies that ensure that person is benefited. So I'm so happy that you resonated.
I'm accidentally quoting Gandhi. That's
Gandhi.
But it's very true. If the person with the least resources can access a thing, then everyone else can access it too.
Can access
Simple.
this too. Absolutely clear. So thank you so much, Laura. After I know you the kind of work I want to just put in the kind of emotional capital that Laura would be putting in each kid that comes to her. I mean, I teach in a university. I have 80 kids that I'm teaching one course, one semester, and I get so much emotionally invested in their success. And I'm like, okay, how can I help them? Okay, they will ask me 10 questions. Okay, I should find out. I am supposed to know this because I'm the teacher. And if I don't know this, then I'm not doing a job that I am supposed to do. So I feel really, really responsible. I can't even imagine the emotional aspect of your job of hearing these stories and real life examples of these kids, and then having those sleepless nights, and then if they are making it, having a great time. If they are not able to make it, then again restarting the process for them. So I mean, and I know the current political situation, whatever it is not really conducive to the kind of work that you're doing, but still you are working and giving hope to what you said about the shoehorn analogy is absolutely correct. Why are we asking these kids to fit into certain DH criteria? Because we start having second doubts about our own way of life. And so I mean, absolutely, I mean, whatever you have said is I resonate with it. And I also think about it in many, many which ways. And what is the purpose of education? And is it the definition of the education sitting here in India in Global South? Is it the education that has been given to us by the West? Is the definition that everybody has to follow, and or there is some better way for us to think about it? So after so many years of this work they have been doing, my final thing, what continues to give you hope? How do you keep yourself motivated to do this year on? And as I said, I was not able to do it. I did it for 3 years with Ashoka, and then I didn't find anybody that I could vouch for the same project. But please, if you can share your thought, what keeps you going?
Yeah, I do work with the students pretty individually, and that's an honor, and it's from that you see how wonderful they are, you see how hardworking they are, you see how determined they are. That the hope is in them, and then you see how they flourish in university. And I think in the face of enormous need, the need is overwhelming if you look at it, but remembering that each one helped makes a difference for that student, for their family, for their community, even broader down the line. So that's where I keep the hope, is like I can't help everyone, but each one I can help keeps me going, I guess.
Thank you so much.